Oh, hello. My name is David Barbeski. I'm the producer of FORTVNA, a short film about racism in the professional environment. This is the behind-the-scenes featurette, in which we explore the various secrets and tidbits of the film. So, let's crack on, shall we?
What do you mean, crack on?
It's an English expression. It makes it sound fancier.
It should never come out of your mouth again, man.
Uh-huh.
Also,
Okay.
what's with the cup?
The mug? The mug is...
Yeah, it's empty.
The mug is a cinema prop. It's from the film. It's
empty.
Just cut to the damn featurettes.
Okay.
When developing the story, we had to switch between 7 different conceptual scripts before we found the right one, and even then, the original draft for FORTVNA didn't do well when we pitched it. However, in the end, our director, Tyrese Addison, thought that we needed to add more meaning to the story than we already had, and as such, this film is not only about racism, but has more to do with the capitalistic society we live in, where people are so fixed on making money that they forget that they are human, and start to see those around them as numbers on a statistics sheet, rather than actual people. When choosing themes, the idea of ancient Roman and Latin theatrical origins was tossed around a lot, and thus, there are many references to these concepts.
The title, FORTVNA, means fate in Latin. We decided to choose this title for 2 reasons. First one is, it sounds pretty good. Secondly, the original draft for FORTVNA was subdivided in 3 segments, and each segment represented one point of view, and each point of view story built up to Paul eventually ending up in that lobby, ready to kill his ex-employer.
Isabel, the security guard, is a reference to the name of the Romans' Lady Justice, Justitia. Just like Lady Justice, at the end of the film, Isabel is left balancing out her options, coming up with a decision. Will she once again work against her close friend and not help him? Or will she, on the contrary, stand by him, whatever happens? Does she choose her friend or everything else? Is it just for him to have been swatted aside because of the simple whim of a megalomaniac CEO? So, she's deciding the fate, or FORTVNA, of these 2 people, just like Lady Justice used to do in Roman mythology, balancing out the odds, the pros and cons, the moral and immoral outcomes. In the end, just like Lady Justice, Isabel needs to choose between right and wrong, duty or attachment. Her role is crucial to the story's ending, and Maria played her role perfectly and professionally.
Fun fact, her name tag was originally a mistake. As in, initially it was supposed to say Isabel as a first name and FORTVNA as a subtitle, instead of Isabel FORTVNA as a full name. However, the incompetents we told to make us the name tag misunderstood the instructions and wrote it the way they did. However, the in-law justification is that the company FORTVNA Incorporated demands all its employees consider themselves part of one big family.
Other characters' names, such as Jules, Paul, and Chloe, are based off of big figures in Roman times. Jules Cotterill shares a first name, a set of initials, and a personality with the Roman general Julius Caesar, who was considered in his time to be the top dog, and who didn't hesitate to demand to be instated as Rome's dictator for life. Just as Caesar's mistress was Cleopatra, Chloe is Jules Cotterill's mistress, and aside from the fact that he simply dislikes black people, Jules' real intention is to give Paul's job to her, so they can spend more time together. Finally, Paul's name begins with P, as a reference to the Roman consul Pompey. Just as he's trying to hold off against Jules, Pompey tried to fight Caesar. Also, the name Paul means small and humble, which he is when compared to Jules. The entire initial scene draws parallels between Jules and Paul's lifestyles. We see how both of them approach going to work. While Paul needs to shave in the morning, consequently putting on the metaphorical mask he uses to work in a professional milieu and thus becoming a person he actually isn't, Jules, on the other hand, constantly grooms himself, thus embellishing the demigod he already sees himself as. The contrast between Paul at the public bus stop where his shoe gets stepped on and Jules in his own car with a private driver and some sweets highlights the status difference between them. Paul doesn't have the luxury of having a personal space, whereas Jules not only has one, he has one anywhere he goes. He takes it with him. The shot of the candy was done at the last minute during reshoots, when Tyrese and I thought it would be a nice bit of foreshadowing if when cherry-picking amongst all his sweets he chooses to eat the only darker one. Later on, when Jules says,
"Don't worry, Manning. I'm not a monster.
It's a callback to some politicians who make similar claims after screwing people over.
On set, things weren't easy. We ended up filming around 10 hours a day for an entire weekend, and that's excluding the reshoot day. We filmed the majority of the scenes in an old mutual wealth building, as the company was extremely kind to let us film in it for 2 weekends.
The camera we filmed on was a Sony F5, courtesy of Ralph Hewitt and our executive producer Piers Untersander. And had it Renato Solca, our cinematographer and editor and VFX guy, been there, we would have been massively screwed. However, his skill can be easily seen through the wonderful photography that FORTVNA ended up offering. Assisting him on the monitor was Megan Gordon, a first-year student here at Solent, Southampton University who was kind enough to help us out when we asked, and who worked perfectly well with Renato. The sound of the entire production was handled, recorded and edited by Lena, who despite injuring her foot on the first shooting day, and despite the rest of the crew hitting on it, me included, just for fun, showed up the next day all set and ready to roll, like a goddamn boss. Makeup was done by Violetta, who despite Tyrese and my own vague directions, was able to do a wonderful job at making our actress camera-friendly. Tyrese, our director, made the vision happen, giving the actors room to develop their character on the way and allowing them to have creative input into the role they portrayed whilst keeping to the plot. Every new shot this genius would think about how he wanted it done, what manner, and direct everyone on how to make his vision come true.
Finally, there was me, the producer, and on set, the first assistant director, making sure that everybody stayed on schedule, fixing any surfacing problems, and constantly getting exaggeratedly angry for otherwise no small reasons. Also, big shout out to Audric, Alfie, and Michael, who took some of their time off to help us out with the production.
Later on, it was all up to Renato and Lena to work their post-production magic. Lena was able to clean up the sound all the while creating an entire ambience and atmosphere for the office scenes, making it sound like more than 3 employees were actually present on camera. Renato was able to turn the logo I originally drew up into a building crest, which he was able to put on every wall and glass window, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, as he was able to do stuff like transforming the old Mutual Wealth building into a bigger, cooler FORTVNA building with his VFX skills. Later on, FORTVNA went to being nominated at Southampton Solent University's Sophia Awards, with the nominations being Best Sound, Best Production Design, Best Editing, Best Script, Best Director, Best Cinematography, and Best Film, and we won the last 2. All in all, both Tyrese and I can agree that this film only succeeded because we worked together. Plenty of obstacles were thrown in our direction, but we were only able to get this film done, and more importantly done well, because we just chose to endure whatever our environment could dish out. And that's the end of the behind-the-scenes featurette. Hope you found this entertaining to watch as it was for us to make.